going to do a wrap-up. We're going to do a February wrap-up. And it's only like a week into March. You're going to make this video fun. Hey everybody, it is Megan. And after doing a wrap-up for January, I decided that I enjoyed doing that. And I'm going to do that more regularly. So I'm going to do a wrap-up for February. So the thing is, after doing the 30 and 30 in January, I decided to slow down a little bit. So I didn't read as many books in February as I did in January. In February, I only read 25 books. Okay, but to be fair, 10 of those were graphic novels. And, you know, those are easy to get through. So I'm not that crazy. I'm just, listen, I really like reading. I also don't have my super cool stats this time around, but I have like a very official printed list of all of the books I read. Took 2 whole pages for this list because I had a whole bunch of space that I was going to write in all of my notes about what I was going to say about these books. And I haven't written any notes about any of these, so this is just going to be off the top of my head. Enjoy that. But I can very quickly kind of break it down for you. So I already said 10 graphic novels, 1 nonfiction, 1 children's classic, 1 contemporary young adult, 3 sci-fi, and I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fantasy, because your girl still likes fantasy. Oh, that messes with the lighting a lot. We probably shouldn't be flashing that too much. Okay, so really quick, I'm going to start with the graphic novels. We're going to get through those. I read volumes 7, 8, and 9 of Saga, and this is by Brian K. Vaughan, and art is by Fiona Staples. I believe there's probably other people involved. Graphic novels are really hard to, like, quickly identify who's the creators because there's a lot of them. So forgive me as I go through these graphic novels if I completely mess things up. But I read these 3 volumes. Not in the correct order, because I read volume 9 thinking that it was the next volume and then realized that I had made a grave mistake and never actually read volume 8. So to rectify that, I reread volume 7 to get myself kind of like back in the mindset of where I should have been, and then read volume 8 after I had already read volume 9. So that was my mess of a reading month, I'll tell you. Saga is a series that I really enjoy a lot of the themes and a lot of the world building. I really enjoy a lot that goes into unfolding the story and discovering what's going to happen next. I have very little, if any, attachment to any of the characters. I just don't really feel for them. I don't care if they're going to die or how long they're going to make it or what's going to happen to them next. It's just kind of like I'm on a roller coaster and I'm along for the ride, and I'll see what happens next, and it's kind of fun and enjoyable while it's happening, but once I'm off that roller coaster, I'm not really thinking about those stories anymore. They're just kind of, in the moment, I enjoy them, but as soon as I walk away, I can spend like 2 years without reading another one and not think about it at all. Which causes me to get out of order on which volume I have next to read. I also read Persepolis, the story of a childhood. This is by Marjan Satrapi, and it says Matthias Ripa. We're going to say that that's how that's pronounced. I guess did art maybe? I don't know. I'm just going off of what they listed on Goodreads. I'm really terrible at all of this. This is a story about, oh my god, I'm going to mess this up. This is a story that takes place during the Islamic Revolution in Iran and then the following war with Iraq. I believe that's right. Oh my god, I'm so nervous about that. I'm so bad at history. But it's kind of just a girl's like memoirs about her time growing up with all of that going on and her experiences and the experiences of others around her and like what she had to deal with, but also what she knew others had to deal with and how they kind of juxtaposed. It was really good. It was one of those that the more I thought about it, the more I was overwhelmed emotionally. But just in the moment, just reading it, it was actually kind of a fun read. It's not really like a light subject, but she wrote it in such a way that it was really fun, and I enjoyed my time with it. Where are you going? Don't jump on the shelf. You jump on the shelf and knock books off, and then I get upset with you. Yeah, you just sit there and look cute in the background, okay? I started Super Sons, guys. I've been, like, having Super Sons in the back of my brain for a while because it's been recommended again and again by so many different people in so many different communities. And I just haven't ever started it. But I finally started it. It's by a bunch of people. Brian J. Tomasi is the one who seems to be listed the most frequently, so I'm just going to throw his name out there. But I read volume 1, 2, and then volume 2.5, which I thought originally was volume 3, but it wasn't. It's volume 2.5 because graphic novels are weird. But that's Super Sons of Tomorrow. And I read all of those, and they're so good. They're so fun. I love the bromance that is forming between Jonathan Kent and Damian Wayne. I love their dynamic. It's gorgeous. I want to, like, hug them both and then, like, send them off on missions and just watch them fight. Because that's pretty much the best. That's the best. So, read those. Love them. Highly recommend. I also read volume 1 of Paper Girls, which is also by Brian K. Vaughan, and I have Cliff Chiang as the artist, I guess. Again, I'm terrible. Ignore all of this. Don't expect me to give you quality content ever on this channel. This one was okay. This one is a science fiction. It's set in the 80s, but it involves time travel, so who knows where it's gonna go. But it follows a group of paper girls who are on a route delivering papers. They're doing it late into the night on Halloween night. They're all like partnering up just to keep safe because there's a certain neighborhood that they're traveling through that kind of has some unsavories about. And yeah, it kind of gets weird. Real fast it gets weird. There's all these different like creatures showing up and like people from different times and all of this like tech, and people get pulled out of time and then put back in time, and then there's a cliffhanger. And yeah, I'm intrigued enough that I'm gonna pick up the second volume eventually, but it didn't like resonate with me as much as some of these other graphic novels. Like I didn't immediately feel like I had to continue it, but I am curious to see where that series goes. Also started volume 1 of Monstrous, which I'm not even sure how to describe. Like, the main character is someone who is kind of almost enslaved, I would guess is the way. She's a half-breed, and so half-breeds are kind of subjugated in this world, and she is trying to get revenge or get back at somebody. Like, the whole plot line I wasn't completely, like, 100% following because I was just so distracted by the gorgeous art. The art in this is amazing. Have I talked about the people who were involved in this? I have Marjorie M. Liu and Sana Takeda as people who did stuff in this book. I'm sure one of those may be an artist. There may be more artists. There's a lot of, like, details in this art, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's multiple artists that put stuff into this. But the art is so mesmerizing. It is so beautiful, and I love it. The world's fascinating, and the art matches it so well, because it's just such a weird, mysterious fantasy world. There's all of these different races. There's these old gods, and they, like, appear as, like, these giant colossi that just kind of float around. They don't really interact with the world, but they're there, and they're beautiful, and they're just hanging out in the background, and you're just like, that's just the coolest thing ever. Like, I read this. I remember reading this, but I don't really remember a whole lot about it other than it's so pretty and the world's so fascinating, and I just have to continue on with it on those merits alone. But yeah, the main girl has some kind of darkness within her, some kind of weird, almost like parasite-esque type creature living in her that can kind of take control and do different, like, give her different abilities. There's a lot of great potential with that. I really like that kind of stuff. I still haven't finished the Parasite manga, which I need to get back to because I want to finish that manga. It reminded me a lot of that manga. And, yeah, it's just really intriguing. And I am planning on picking this up soon. Like, I think there's 3 volumes out now. So I'm planning on hopping back into this series soon. I have the second one checked out. So that's going to happen in March. Yeah, there you go. There's just a sneak peek for my March wrap-up. Okay, and then the last graphic novel is, I read the first volume of The Wicked and the Divine. We have Kieran Gillen and Jamie McClevey as the artist slash writer slash whatever of this particular graphic novel. This one's kind of, it's weird. It involves like a pantheon of gods who I want to say like 80, maybe 80 years. Yeah, we're gonna go with 80. Every 80 years, they take possession of so many humans. I think it's a pantheon of maybe like 12 gods. I don't remember. But anyway, however many gods they are, they possess humans, and then they live out their lives in those humans for 2 years. And then they all die. All of those humans are just dead after that, and then the gods return to whatever kind of weird alternate reality, plane of existence, hibernative state, whatever it is. And then 80 years later, they come back and they do it all again. I'm not really sure what the reasons are for all of this. I'm not really sure what's going on other than it's weird. Sometimes this happens when I read a graphic novel. I get to the end and I'm just like, what did I just read? And that's kind of how I felt at the end of The Wicked and the Divine. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but I'm intrigued. Okay, so getting into actual books. I'm just going to go through these in order of how I typed them because that's easy for me to keep track of. And the nonfiction book that I read this month, or last month, because it's already well into March, as I've already established, was Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. Its subtitle is A Funny Book About Horrible Things, but this is kind of a lot of stories that revolve around her struggles with depression and anxiety and other mental health handicaps, things that she's struggling with. It was very emotional. It was incredibly funny. I had laugh out loud moments. Like, parts of this book made me laugh so loud that while I was listening to the audiobook while driving, I almost thought that maybe I needed to like pull over just for safety reasons because I was that just overwhelmed with the hilarity. But this is, again, another one of those books. It's like really emotional, and as much as you enjoy it in the moment, the more I think about it, the more it makes me like really think about some hard truths and just how complicated and horrible and beautiful and fascinating and all of these things that mental health is, and how we all like exist somewhere on this big broad spectrum. We all think in different ways and feel in different ways. And it's really complicated, and this book never really, like, undermines the fact that it's a super complicated thing to write about, to talk about, and it embraces it in a lot of different ways, and I just really loved this book. This was one of my favorite books that I read in, like, the last year or so that I've really gotten back into reading. I started really reading heavily in February of last year, and so in this last year where I've read so many books, this I can say is one of my absolute favorites, and I highly recommend that you pick it up. It is beautiful and emotional and hilarious and heartwarming, and all of that stuff just makes for an excellent book. It's great. So as far as a classic goes, I try to read at least one nonfiction and one classic every month. That's kind of my little sub-goal amongst reading just a crap ton of books. I read The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Why are you on the counter, Cat? And this is a really heartwarming story. It's about a girl who's she hasn't been really raised in a way that she would be a nice girl. She's kind of the worst. That's basically your impression of her from the beginning. But when circumstances lead to her living with her uncle after her parents pass from cholera, she kind of gets exposed to the nature that exists around the house, the gardens, and then she meets several kids her age and kind of builds friendships. And it's really a book about like the positivity that you get back from the world when you put positivity out. So it's all about like the healing powers of nature, the healing powers of being kind to fellow human beings, and how that can help heal you not only like on an emotional level but actually on a physical level, because there's definitely moments of being healed physically in this book because of the power of that positive energy kind of circulating all over the place. It's a really sweet book. I can see why so many people really love it. I just thought it was really heartwarming, and I enjoyed my time with it. It didn't like reach me the way that it's reached a lot of people, I would still recommend this read. I still think it's worth the read, and it came at a good time in my life. Like, I needed something that was a little lighter, a little more heartwarming, and so I really picked a good time to read it. But overall, I was just okay with it. It didn't blow my mind in any way, but it is a really nice, wholesome children's classic. Okay, Skinny. Skinny. Oh, so I just got off of Furiously Happy, which I touted as being like one of the best books that I've read in the 180 or so books that I've read since February of last year. Yes, I have read that many books. I just calculated that on Goodreads, and that was an eye-opening experience. But anyway, I also read Skinny this month. It was awful. Definitely the worst book. Definitely by far I would give this book a negative score probably. And the thing is, I read it fast, like in one sitting. I really enjoyed my time when I was reading it, but the entire time I was just like, why are we not addressing the fact that this girl has mental health issues? Why are we not talking about the root of her problems? Because the entire book is about this girl's weight. She's a 15-year-old girl. She weighs about 300 pounds, and she is just so, internalized all of this emotional baggage that she has to the point where she has created this subconscious within her that she calls Skinny, that literally just whispers in her ear all the things that she thinks people would say to her if they had no filter. Basically, that's what it is. It's the voice that tells her that everybody thinks that she's fat, that she's gross, that she eats way too much, how that's impossible, how could anybody ever eat that much, that they're all laughing at her because she can't fit in any of the chairs or in the desks and stuff like that. All of this is established very early on in the book, and it is mind-numbing to get through this book and realize once you get to the end that it's never addressed any of the mental baggage that is clearly there in this book. Any of the mental health things that have, any of the depression or any of the bad relationship with food that she has, the fact that she has an eating disorder, isn't ever really talked about. What this book is about this 15-year-old girl convincing her father to allow her to get a gastric bypass surgery. And that was ridiculous to me. How can you focus so much on these really important things that need to be discussed? How can you ignore all of that when your audience is presumably 15-year-old girls? How can you ignore all of that, the emotional weight of this story? Ignore all of that and just focus on the physical weight and just be like, hey, why don't you just try fixing it with the surgery? This book was garbage. The more I talk about it, the more I get mad about it. I immediately got this book out of my house. I actually took it to the recycling bin because I didn't want to donate it somewhere where some other 15-year-old girl would pick it up and read it and take something from it that was positive, because I don't think there's any positive message in this book. And I really don't feel this strongly negative towards things usually. I'm usually one who tries to find the pros and cons of every book and try to find the silver lining. This book was bad. The only real pro I can give to you is that it's easy to read and it's real short, so it doesn't take you long to get through. But this book is bad. And I don't recommend this. I wish it didn't exist. It really, really bothered me. Okay, we're getting into the sci-fi fantasy. This is the cream of the crop. I've already been filming for 20 minutes? Oh my gosh, this is going to be ridiculously long. Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I love this book. I was one of those that was just I'm going to get to this book and I'm going to be so underwhelmed because it is so overhyped. And so I intentionally downplayed my hype levels entering into this book. Had I entered this book with the appropriate level of hype that everybody else was trying to set me up for, I still would have loved this book. This book surprises me immensely. And it's not perfect. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's the best book I've ever read, but it is enjoyable and it knows what it is and it knows what it's doing, and it is so well crafted and so well thought out on so many levels, and it's so mind-numbingly twisty-turny. Like, I have never been on such a weird, like, I can't predict what's going to happen next in these books. And I am one who actively tries to predict all of the endings to all of the books that I'm reading while I'm reading them. Like, I always try to call what's going to happen next. I have been super unsuccessful. Unsuccessful? That's a word. I have been super unsuccessful in predicting where these books are going and what's going on. I am in the middle of Thunderhead right now. I am enjoying my time immensely. These books are incredible. I haven't said anything about what they're about. Basically, in summary, it is a young adult book series that is set in a future where all disease, any kind of injury, religion, politics, all of that has been just cleansed. None of that is an issue anymore. People can live for as long as they possibly could. Like, I mean, they can just go on living forever. Everything's great. All of this is under the reign of the Supreme Thunderhead, which is this, like, artificial intelligence supercomputer that has all information that exists. Like, all possible human information that has been collected is within this computer, and this computer can calculate and observe and manipulate everything all the times. However, with all that being said, population is still an issue because there is still a finite number of resources, and so there is this separate governing body that's developed that the Thunderhead can't interact with that is called the Scythes, and their job is to kill people. And that's what they are, the population control. And so you're getting perspectives from the Scythdom, and you're getting perspectives from people who are, like, interacting with the Thunderhead, and you're getting, like, weird insights, especially in the second book, from the Thunderhead. Like, it's really hard for me to separate all of these books because I'm so, like, in this universe right now. I'm not even really sure, like, where one book ends and the other book begins because I am just so immersed in all of it right now. But this series is dope. Is really good. I really, really, really am surprised by how much I liked it because I was convinced I was going to find all of its flaws. And it's not flawless, but it earned its hype. This is a series that I feel like genuinely earned its hype. I read Life, the Universe, and Everything by Douglas Adams. This is the third book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. These books are really fun. I really enjoy them. I don't remember a lot of specifics whenever I get in, like, to the end of one of them because they're just super absurd and that's what they're supposed to be. But it's a fun laugh riot going through them, and they're really great on audiobook. I think they're all, or at least most of them, are narrated by Martin Freeman, so that's fun. And yeah, these are just a great time. I mean, honestly, that's what I need every now and again. I just need a book that I don't have to focus too much on, like, plot or characters or anything like that. I just have to have a whole bunch of really funny, wacky, absurd, crazy, over-the-top experiences clustered together in one nice package, and that's what these books are, and I love them for that. Okay, Sleeping Giants by Sylvan Novelle. I actually got the title right this time because I have it written down on a list. Anytime I talked about it in the vlog, I always refer to this book as Waking Gods, which is the second book. It is a science fiction adult novel in which everything is told through interviews, recordings, and, like, personal, like, documents of varying degrees. I listened to the audiobook. It works really well as an audiobook. It's really good audiobook. But it is about the discovery of these different weird ancient parts that are buried underneath the ground that when put together assemble this, like, colossal automaton kind of thing that can be controlled by different kinds of control panels inside, but it's very clear by the inside of how it's set up that the way that the controls work, it doesn't match human anatomy, so it's very early determined that this is probably something that is alien, and yeah, it just kind of goes on from there, and it is a weird ride, man. And I'm really excited to see what the other books do. Like, the first one was enough to be like, I'm super, like, wanting to know what happens next, but I'm not fully hooked yet. I'm intrigued, but I'm not fully hooked. But I feel like by the time I get into the second book, if we really start digging into what this really means, like what the possibilities really are after this discovery, I think I'm gonna love this series. I really do. I think this is gonna be a series that I am going to adore, and I cannot wait to continue on. Which, like I said in my vlog, probably means that I'll get to it sometime within the next 6 months, because that's my reading schedule. So something that you may or may not know about me is that I am a huge, huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. So when I heard that Slayer by Kirsten White was coming out, Kirsten White is an author that I've read a little bit by and have enjoyed her writing. I was intrigued. I didn't go into it with, like, big expectations, but I was intrigued. And so I picked that up in February and read it, and I thought it was fine. Why is everybody so mad at this book? I don't get it. Listen, people are angry at this book because the characters don't like Buffy. And I'm sorry, but these characters have earned that right to not like Buffy. These characters that are in this book have to hate Buffy for this story to make sense. That is true facts. That is accurate, and I will fight anybody who gets mad at this book because the characters don't like Buffy, and they don't like that because Buffy saved the world a lot. Well, you know what? She also did a lot of terrible things that hurt people in a lot of horrible ways, and this showed that, and I enjoyed that, and it showed the isolation of being a Slayer in a different way. Was this book incredible? Did this book blow my mind? No, but it was fun. I enjoyed my time with it. It got some chuckles. I enjoyed the inside references. There were some times where I thought it spent a little bit too much time explaining stuff that happened in the show, but at the same time, it also had to explain stuff that happened in the comics because it happens after season 8. So it's gotta, like, catch people up as easily as possible. I would highly recommend watch the show, maybe even read season 8 of comics before you try to jump into this, because you're going to be super confused. I don't think that there's enough explanation to just catch you up on everything, and at the same time, I think there's too much explanation for all the people who already know all of this crap. So it's kind of, they tried to find a middle ground, it didn't work, but overall, like, it was just a fun time. I just went in it with no expectations and allowed myself to enjoy it for what it was, and I thought it was great. I thought it did good. For what it is, for what it adds to the narrative, I thought it was done really well. And honestly, the people who are complaining about it have not been keeping up with the comics, because the comics are garbage. The comics are all over the place and do not stack up to the show. They're super over the top and absurd, and there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and holy crap, has Buffy made some terrible decisions in those comics. So, just saying, Buffy deserves a little hate right now, and I will continue to defend this book for its Buffy hate. Oh man, I'm on 30 minutes? God, I gotta figure out how to not talk so much. Hi. Okay, so I tried Victoria Schwab again. I read the Monsters of Verity duology. This was okay. Like, so here's my thing when it comes to Victoria Schwab. She is an author that I really, really, really want to love. And I love a lot of, like, the different things that she brings to the table, but I'm always just kind of underwhelmed by the execution of it. And this was another case where I thought that there was a lot of interesting things going into this story, but ultimately, when I got to the end, I was just like, huh, well, those were some books. Yeah, that's just been routinely what I've experienced. I haven't read all of her stuff, but I've read enough to kind of know that even though I still get excited whenever I enter another one of her books, like whenever I start discovering another one of her worlds, because I think that they're really ingenious in a lot of ways, but at the same time, she doesn't quite develop things enough. But the Monsters of Verity duology consists of this Savage Song and Our Dark Duet. They follow a couple of different people, one of which is the daughter of, like, this this kind of overlord figure, for lack of a better term. I don't know, he may technically be the mayor. It's been a while since I've read it. But overlord figure in the city of Verity. And then the other perspective is a monster. So that's fun. So the way that monsters work in this book is that monsters are actually like the result of horrible human acts. So whenever a human does something that's truly like terrible, it creates a monster, and the monster just poofs into existence and has to live out its life as this repercussion of that human's dumb, stupid, terrible thing that it did. And it's kind of like, it's a neat concept, but it's kind of all over the place, and I'm not really sure if it like meshes well into like a really cohesive whole for me. Like, it's all about obviously like morality, because the humans are the things that are creating the monsters, but then of course the monsters get all of like the flack for it. Like, the monsters are the things that are hated and are told to, like, you know, you have to avoid, and they're all just awful, and you can't trust the monsters, but the only reason they exist is because the humans did terrible things and they got poofed into existence. Like, there's a lot of potential in all of the morality stuff. I'm just not sure if it all like perfectly lands, but I did like enjoy them. Like, as I was reading them, I was just like, cool, what's gonna happen next, cool, what's gonna happen next, cool, what's gonna happen next. And I got to the end, I was like, okay, I can't say I don't like these books, but I'm just kind of underwhelmed by these books, and I feel like that's unfortunate, and I feel like that's a consistent thing with Victoria Schwab, V.E. Schwab, whatever Schwab she decides to go by. I feel like that's consistently been the case with her, and I want more from her. I want her to just take a little bit more time and really deep dive, because I think she could create some really amazing things, and right now she's just creating some really good things. She's creating some really good things, and I appreciate the really good things, but I want something amazing from her. So in my efforts to complete the Wheel of Time series, it's right, like all right there, it's beautiful, look how pretty it is. I am trying to read a book a month to get it complete by the end of the year, and so in February I read The Shadow Rising. This is book 4. This series is by Robert Jordan and completed by Brandon Sanderson after Robert Jordan's passing. I don't even know how to describe this because I'm so far into it at this point. Like, how do I talk about this? This is an epic fantasy series, and it's a little bit of an older one, and it follows a lot of tropes and things that we kind of expect from epic fantasy series, but it also turns a lot of stuff on its head, and it's got so much in it and so much going on that there's not really any easy way for me to summarize it. But this series has like won a place in my heart. The first book, I think, is a little lacking because you're kind of limited in your perspectives. You're kind of forced into one perspective, and that's what you get for that book. As the series progresses, you get more and more perspectives. You get to have more and more time with different characters, and that's really where the story comes together and becomes really amazing. It's because of all of these incredible characters. There's also incredible world building, some of the best world building that I've ever seen, and just like this is an epic. It is an epic, and it is crazy long. It's 14 books long, and I mean, it's something, it's an investment to try to get through this series, but I'm working on it. I'm enjoying my time, and I cannot wait to progress with this. There's definitely some books coming up that I've heard are a little harder to get through, take a little bit more like willpower to get through, but then the ending I've heard is absolutely incredible, how all the pieces come back together, and I'm enjoying myself immensely with this series. Women's roles in this series, absolutely incredible. Like, the women in these books are so well fleshed out and so different from each other, and so like intelligent and powerful and intimidating and all of these different things, and it's so realistic and grounded in this universe, and it works so well. And yeah, got that one done, and in March I will be reading the 5th book, which is The Fires of Heaven. See, I thought of that off the top of my head. I've got this whole series memorized, I promise. Okay, guys, I only have 5 more books to talk about. Aren't we excited? I read The Wizards of Once by Cressida Cowell. This is the first in her new series. She wrote the How to Train Your Dragon books. And I love the How to Train Your Dragon books, as you might be able to tell. I am already in love with this series. It involves like different neighboring like tribes or units. I don't even know like how they classify themselves, but there's the wizards and then there's the warriors. They both exist in this very like over the top magical forest, and wizards are what you would expect. They're heavy on the magic. They like magic. They use magic. And it's all very much magic based on their side of things. The warriors came in and they decided they didn't like magic, and I believe it's iron that they use to kind of combat magic, because magic doesn't work on iron, so they are all like loaded down with iron, and they actively fight against magic. And so there's very much like a warring tribes kind of notion going on here, and then you get a character from each tribe and they become buds, and they're just lovely. This book, automatically you feel all of Cressida Cowell's wit, her like charm, and her silly kind of crazy 12-year-old humor. It's just beautiful, and I love her books so much. And the audiobooks are narrated by David Tennant, which is always the pitch that I throw out there. Just like, if you're not sure about these books, just realize that David Tennant narrates them. So go check out the audiobooks. And yeah, I fell so madly in love with the How to Train Your Dragon books last year. Like it came out of nowhere. I was enjoying my time. I was having a fun time. Everything was great. And then I fell madly in love. And I'm so already like invested and ready to be at that place again with this new series. But it's early on. There's only 2 books out. So I'm already halfway done with what's available for this series, which is sad. It's gonna hurt me a little bit when I finish that next book and I don't have another book to go to. Okay, Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. How do I talk about this book? Because I'm still not entirely sure I know what this book is. This is a literary masterpiece in so many ways, but it is so hard to explain, so hard to wrap your head around. Their plot doesn't really mean anything. It's a whole bunch of like almost character pieces in this really fantastic world, and amazing themes and all kinds of exploration of all of these like incredibly deep, thought-provoking ideas. And you read it and you're so confused the entire time. But I enjoyed myself, and I hated myself, and I was uncomfortable, and I didn't like it, and I loved it. And it was such a weird, like, I had such a, like, physical reaction to this book. And I did not expect that. I went into this blind, and I did not expect that kind of reaction. This is going to be a book that I absolutely have to revisit, that I have to take my time to really read through it thoroughly and try to glean a little bit more from this book, because I rushed through it, just trying to, like, get through it and experience it, because it's so hard to wrap your mind around it. And I almost recommend that on a first read, to just kind of like rush through it. Listen to the audiobook. The audiobook's amazing. The narrator on that one, he does an amazing job and really resonates well with the story, and like captures all of the different emotions that are like, he just does an incredible job. But like, just try to get through it. And get through that last section, because that last section is really where a lot of the pieces start to come together, and you really get some of your best moments. And then you can maybe try to go back and like explore it a little bit, or maybe it's not for you, and that's fine. I don't think this book's going to be for everybody. This book I really recommend taking some time to do some research and really figure out what this book is before you go into it, because going into it blind, I think, is going to hurt a lot of people's experience with this book. I think it's going to hurt this book overall. Like, I think overall this book isn't going to be rated very highly, because I think a lot of people are going to go into it blind and be like, what the heck is this crap? What did I get into? It is so bizarre, and that's all I can really say about it. It is a bizarre book, but it's really good. It's like, I guess I'm so fond of it, even though I'm still like trying to wrap my head around what this book is. I'm going to go slightly out of order. I read King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This wasn't the greatest book that I ever read. Leigh Bardugo, she's all over the place, man. Like the Grisha trilogy, the original trilogy, and it's a thing of its time. You know, it's suffering from some tropes and some things that existed in YA during that time, I'm sure. So, you know, you kind of have to go into it understanding that it is a product of its time. But nonetheless, I really don't like the Grisha trilogy. I really felt like it wasn't developed right. I felt like there was a lot of issues that I had with the characters, and I feel like overall I really did not enjoy my time with that, and would have probably stopped reading Lee Bardugo after that had I not already purchased the audiobook for Six of Crows. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to listen to the audiobook. I hear nothing but good things about this duology, so I listened to the audiobook for Six of Crows and like really warmed up to this cast of characters and really liked what was going on in this particular book. And I read Crooked Kingdom and was just overwhelmed with Crooked Kingdom. I thought Crooked Kingdom was amazing. And then we got to King of Scars, and it's not the worst thing I've ever read, but it really doesn't feel well thought out. It really feels like a bunch of cobbled together mess, and parts of it work really well, and parts of it don't work well at all, and it's horribly anticlimactic, and I don't know. After coming out of the Six of Crows duology, I wanted more, I expected more, I needed more. My cat's distracting me. Final 2 books! Oh my god! I can't believe I made it to the end of the list. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to do these wrap-ups differently, because I can't talk about 20 books every month and have it be a succinct video. So, final 2 books. Both by S.A. Chakraborty. I reread The City of Brass, and then I followed it up with her very recently released Kingdom of Copper. These books are amazing. I love these books way more than I probably should. Like, I understand there's a lot that isn't great about these books. The pacing's kind of garbage in both of them. Like, it does that thing where the first 2/3 of the book is just a long, drawn out setup for the last third of the book, but that last third of the book is always so incredible to me. Like, both of these books have that, and the last third is so just mind-numbingly, just absolutely over the top amazing that I cannot stand the fact that I have to wait for like a year plus to get another book. I'm so ready for that third book, and it's just driving me crazy. But this is a Middle Eastern inspired fantasy that follows a girl who doesn't realize that she has jinn blood in her, and she kind of gets swept away into this magical world that involves the jinn and all of these different people and all of the political turmoil that exists within these different tribes of people as they're trying to live out their lives in Daevabad and beyond. Daevabad is the city where most of this takes place in, and it is like this magical hidden city that all of these magical creatures live in. And it's really well done as far as like really in-depth and really well-developed characters. It's got some of the best character development that I have ever experienced, and there's times where I really just can't like find these characters insufferable. Like, they're not always just wonderful, but they always come back around in such a way that I'm just like, man, how is she making me fall in love with absolutely every one of these characters? Because she does. Somehow I am falling in love with absolutely every single one of these characters, and I cannot wait to get to that third book and hopefully have even more character perspectives and get more into what's going on in the minds of these characters, because that's just been a blessing. I love what she's doing with all of this stuff. And yeah, those absolutely like my like top recommendation right now for like new fantasy that's coming out. Obviously there's gonna be some flack I get because I still haven't read any Brandon Sanderson, but of what I've read, I really like the Daevabad trilogy and highly recommend that. And that's where I'm gonna end this video, this absurdly long video. I don't know, I'm gonna have to like maybe like do like a mid-month check-in and just do like the first half of the books that I read that month, and then do like another video for the second half of the books, because these videos are ridiculously long. This is dumb. Why did I do this?